Hi, this is Robert Bailey, and this is my latest iteration on my Killing Floor 2 level, currently called KF Arena. I'm going to be walking through just kind of a basic game and looking at, and probably won't go through the boss round because I don't believe I have that much to talk about, but we'll see kind of how that goes. The biggest change over previous iterations is now the um, everything is textured. Uh, Everything is using the basic and included textures from already existing Killing Floor maps, such as the specifically the Biotic Slab and Evacuation Point. This was to save time and also to make sure I had more familiarity with what exactly the editor offered, and it was more of a interesting challenge to work around those constraints. Um, and more time effective at this current point, and just trying to use things in a creative manner. So the feeling of the map, it's still a large arena, um, pretty much hockey arena type dimensions and size, and finish this round. Um, and like the basic texture in the bottom is ice is a nice texture from KF Outpost. But in the interest of making the map more dynamic and interesting, rather than using just a crap ton of tables and benches and trash cans, which would one normally find in an arena, besides just like I was realizing there's a lack of good excuses to put chest high or just random interjections and walls. So in the interest of making the map more dynamic, it has shifted into more of kind of a residual survivor space, something like a refugee environment, to kind of escape the outbreak. So people would escape into a place like this, and um, and it's just kind of degraded. It's been attacked. It's been damaged. The chaos of the problems has definitely shown its wear and tear, but it also initially wasn't the best place. It has worn down paint. It doesn't really have paint. It was kind of cheaply put together. I have a lot of these housing um, advertisements and banners because not only do they provide a source of light for gameplay reasons that can't be destroyed, which will help guide the player. And so, like from here, the player has a signpost there to indicate a direction here, and then that area is naturally lit up. Um, it allows the player to, and it shows kind of like, oh, this might have been funded by Horzine. It's like, oh, look, we're involved in the community. We are a good evil company, not a big evil company that invents robots and invents zombies. Why would you say that? Um, and so by putting them around, it just kind of helps to tell more of that narrative and to get that narrative more involved and more integral to the plot of the map. So it's this cheaply put together, kind of hastily constructed um, arena that gets thrown into this refugee environment, and that's kind of the tail of the map. And it also gave me an excuse to use things like this, like the hazmat tents um, and integrate elements like relief supplies in a more interesting manner than and a more reasonable one. And just more variety in props is always nice and helps give the map more of a feel beyond just kind of a generic environment, which was kind of the ideal thing I was hoping for using the pre-made and already existing assets. Um, the engine would definitely support me going through with a fully custom map. It just wasn't usable at this time and learning everything for the first time to invest that, so I wanted to focus on learning what was available to me and how to use those tools in the most interesting manner. Um, the other big addition is the first steps have been made with lighting. There's more fire effects, there's more background. Apparently there's a pathing issue. I'll have to go and worry about that. And then there's also a skybox now, which is providing a lot of natural light, which might lead to me removing some of the planned lighting, just because now that I have this big enveloping light mass, there's not really a need to have as much working on the inside, or I might put in more flickering lights to put the player um, to make the player uneasy and to mess with them in that way, because that's always fun. From there, continuing the textures, we have things like rubble has replaced a lot of the ramps. I won't lie, rubble was kind of my stand-in whenever I didn't really have a good model to use at the time, but I think it works. Um, it leads to the degradation of the entire environment, um, and just helps it be a little bit more consistent. I could probably take out that little ledge there, but um, more improvements. So, adding in rubble environments to make it look more degraded. I'll probably have some more sticking out here. I wasn't really messing with the way that sloped down, and I wasn't able to get as good of a playtest this weekend because Overwatch came out and everyone's playing that, or the beta at least. So I want to see how players react to the slope, using that before putting in a bunch of rocks and ledges that could mess up the zombie pathing and lead to possibly exploitable parts of the map, which I want to eliminate as many as possible, because the interesting part isn't standing safely shooting zombies, it's navigating the hell they kind of give you. Um, but the Rebel was used kind of to help continue and provide the stand-in for making sure that it's just further enforced that this place is really screwed over. Um, the the spawner in this center is working, but it's always hard to tell. I've had to use a couple of debug tools to and like cheat codes and whatnot to show that one working, which isn't easy at this point in time, just because of the way it triggers. It doesn't trigger when the player gets too close, and when the player's running around upstairs, they won't really notice whether or not zombies are coming out of the falling jumbotron, which uses this tile texture because it was the closest I could get to approximating how I remember like jumbotrons and the kind of cheap hockey arena back home. Well, it wasn't the jumbotron, but the big screens they had on the walls in like the lobby area were just a network of small TVs stretched together, not stretched together, networked together to display one solid image. So that kind of blocky idea I liked, and so the tile texture allowed a really quick way to use that. Continuing on, there's this wood paneling because of like a wooden board system. I didn't have lines on, and I'm not really lamenting the lack of lines on the ice because, well, if it's been used as this refugee camp, the people probably aren't caring. I forgot that texture. Um, the people probably aren't caring about whether or not the ice is playable. They're caring more about, do we have medical supplies? Which is something I tried to emphasize throughout this, and I will go show off some more props in the next round, because that's pretty much everything on the ice floor. There's also now cupboards in these back storage areas, because this is what I would imagine would be like working area, storage area. So I wanted to make sure to have those down here, so there's, to make it more lived in, to put more justification. There's still ads, because it's like, oh, people, they'd probably have, another way to finance it cheaply would be to have billboard space and ad space. So having those kind of as like sponsors. The ventilation systems now not the standard for the ventilation system, because I don't have one networking the entire building together, but that might be fun in a future level. They're see-through, so you can see enemies running on top of it, and it works both ways. It's the same texture applied, enemies can look down on you. Locker rooms have a slightly different texture to indicate the difference, because, I mean, I played hockey for a bunch of years, and people will throw pucks around, people will be stupid. I meant to have the flashlight. So I wanted to make sure that, okay, there's still marks of that. There's benches that people use. It does look a little sanatorium-esque, but that also is kind of a nice, okay, maybe not a nice change, but it's like one of those happy accidents where it's like, okay, it kind of flows with a lot of the other themes of the main levels. The ceiling used a different texture. That was purely to break up the monotony of having the one gray texture fill everything, and it made sense in my mind to have, oh, you have a foundational material, and that you were supposed to paint over, and another one, but maybe there wasn't time, or I am in a bad spot. Maybe there wasn't time to paint it over, or people never bothered to, so it just became like this clear line. And it also serves to differentiate the the small stairwells. I am in a really bad spot. Uh, I want to demo the level, not die. Um, I haven't bought body on Gus. I've been playing terribly. But that's not the important part. So there were I guess I'm just gonna demo the top now. The stairwells have this other texture again to differentiate them, and to have like a clear line saying less of a in-universe reasoning and more of a no, this is a distinctive way for you to navigate floors as opposed to other internal environments, which I thought was important. The above spawn areas, where the zombies can drop down, that's now signposted with uh, the flames, and that is intentional to give the players more warning about it. In addition to the on-surface rubble, because there's so much rubble now, it's almost lost some of its impact. I tried to spread it out and not overpower elements, but to make it even more obvious, it's like this is not a happy accident universe thing. This is, oh man, I did miss some textures. That stinks. Oh well. I'll be sure to find that in future iterations. And by future iterations, I mean the next 5 minutes. Committed to this video. So, I signposted those with fire just to make it even more obvious. Maybe painfully so, but just to make it's like, no, this is a danger. This is a significant thing you should be aware of and should be paying attention to. And I don't have it like circling the entire environment because that would be silly, but I wanted to definitely be a factor that players could see from the angles they were most likely to approach those spawns from. Other things like ramps have been replaced again with rubble, because not only does it provide a good texture thing, but something like this would be like, oh no, if people came in and it was degraded and destroyed, they would push the stuff into one area, and also use it to help form a barrier as they're getting overrun with the sandbags. And so that's what this idea and this spawn was for. Not spawn, but what that model mess was used for. I need to put some sandbags there. I can clip through. This is a really bad demo. I'm just showing all the things I missed. But then also using it to block this path, because I want this path to pretty much dead end for players, and force them to take damage to go out, because the idea of the top path is there's options to move, but it is naturally more limiting because you have more limited ways to get up there. And so I want to make sure to mess with the players to not punish them for this option, but to say it's like, well, if you've circled back because you've been backing up this whole time, you can't back up anymore. And you're going to have to deal with the kind of mess you've gotten yourself into. Like how I believe I still have the Scrake to deal with. Yeah, he's over there. Luckily the patch it so he won't always be angry, so I can still kind of leisurely talk. The Jumbotron, it fell from that barrier. So you have the broken and the broken. I believe I mentioned that before, but I just wanted to highlight it again. Because I don't currently have all the upper lighting done, which means that it looks like they're just floating down the ether, and they actually all are attached to a wall. It's just too far away from my flashlight. Other elements include this crate card. I believe it's been here pretty much since I first started putting props in. But I've got things like these knocked over racks, the bodies. I like this medical section I put over here. So there's a hazmat tent, you have trash cans, trash bags, medical supplies, and then kind of this, it is almost in a state of animation, but just the medical tables that would be lined up, and then someone knocked them over, started flipping them around, and they're in their current state, and it lets players use them as cover and while it is kind of arbitrary, it's like, oh wow, there's this one that conveniently landed standing up, but it made sense to me to have like this sense of, you'd have a medical environment, you'd have a section that's like, this is where we take care of the wounded who got out, this is where we have people who can sleep over in the kind of the VIP lounge area, this is where we have these spaces and we should use them. And so that was kind of my thinking with placing that terrain and those props, was the reason of like, well, they need a place to do this, and there's not really a good other one. So I wanted to make sure to use those. The I guess I will show off one of um, the last thing I really had to show off is me messing up jumps, apparently. The grape stand is still here. I kind of like that it was the one thing to survive, um, and even then, it got some of those messed up trash cans. So it, but it would be like, okay, there's something nice to look forward to, even in all this horrible events, this kind of tragedy that's happened. There's still some upside, and so the registers, not the register, um, the food stands are still around. They they're still active spawners, and I like the way they were integrated in. That's just, and then this collapse has changed with adding in the slope there. And geez, I apologize. I really missed the inside of these stairwells, but I did find a stair texture that I was happy with. Kind of like a stock concrete stair for the inside um, of these environments, and that was a nice way for me to have it distinguished from the, sort of the more mechanical stairs. I'm just finding everything I'm missing. I apologize for that, but the majority of the texturing is done, I guess I should say, as opposed to my great claim at the start that all of it was done. The last bit is there's now a landscape on the outside. It um, it goes. I don't believe it, for some reason, it's not keeping the texture I had on the editor. And that does not have an interior wall. I should fix that. Again, I apologize. I'm just finding all these problems I really should have noticed. But the I don't know why the landscape isn't keeping its texture. I distinctly saved that in the editor, but um, that's just something I'll be sure to go through and make sure is working in the future. The bus is now on fire because it amused me, and also it's like, oh, that's why they can't use the bus, and it gives a story point. The players enter through this craft bus on this outside edge, and they're stuck in this, or it's five of this building that they now have to deal with. So I might end up. There's still some props I could put in. I might end up putting some bodies and stuff around. I was a little worried that might be overly gruesome, but then again, I'm playing a game called Killing Floor, so I probably shouldn't be worried too much about that and the gold level. But it was just one of those things I want to keep in mind, considering I do practically use body bags as a point of cover over in the corner here, so I wanted to be sure I wasn't overdoing it. Um, but definitely giving a context for why this place is empty is something I will highly consider. Then the last big thing that yeah, just not keeping that texture, that's weird. Um, the next big thing, beyond patching up all the holes I found, is, okay, I can't get out of there, that's not stuck. Besides patching up all the little problems I found, things I forgot, which I can't believe I did, that's just going to be putting in the lighting. So the texturing problems should take maybe an hour to fix. I'm not very worried about that in total, and just making sure I do a full run through and going, no, 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 I need to make sure I have everything. Um, I think it was just I was overly excited to show off what I have done, and I just forgot to do that final pass through, and that's my bad. Um, but yeah, so it'll just be putting in the lighting, refining it, hopefully getting rid of the shadows through walls, removing some of the directional lights like that one, and replacing them with point lights, probably putting flickering ones in stairwells and rooms, removing some of that, some of those uneasy, or adding in more uneasy elements, hopefully putting in destructible lighting systems. I've got about another 2 weeks on this in total for the class. I will see how it is at the end of that, and then decide whether or not I want to keep working on it. I'll probably end up seeing where I am at the end of 2 weeks, and then moving on to a new project and using this kind of as a framework. But it will most likely still go up on Steam Workshop as a way for me to get my work out there to a mass public of people. Um, so yeah, the next week is just going to be patching up the holes and putting in lighting, which I'm not too terribly worried about, and I'm looking forward to doing because it's actually been a fun project, and I've been enjoying my time with it and learning the editor and all of its little quirks. So yeah, that's the latest update for my Killing Floor 2 level. I was going to end it with a nice climactic fight against the Scrake, but I'm not seeing him around, so that's weird. It's not giving me, there it is. But he's not showing up, which makes this sad. And I was like, yeah, I still don't know why that's showing up. That's the issue that's annoying me the most. Because the other stuff I remember, well, I remember forgetting, as silly as that sounds. But this irritates me because I distinctly remember putting the texture on. So I have to see what that issue is. And there he is. Let's see. Anyway, yeah, that's the update for my level, and I will post another video up next week. And thank you for your time.